This video is brought to you in Bachman Vision. Except not really. Before I get started, some administrative stuff. As someone pointed out in my previous video, I am horrible at math. I have no excuse. I'm just terrible at mathematics, especially if I do it in my head. I need to absolutely take a piece of paper and write it out, or have a calculator or something to just put it down on paper, because if I try to think too many numbers at the same time, they start swimming together and I just lose track of where I am in the calculations. I am terrible. To be fair to myself, however, the 2 billion versus 210 million thing, that was a matter of memory. I wasn't trying to count it at the same time. So I'm bad at numbers and I have a bad memory. I don't claim to be a math teacher, at least, so there's that going for me. Second point I wanted to get to before getting started here, as I've pointed out before, but I feel I should remind people more often, if you have a similar article that you'd like me to deal with after I'm done with this one, write it in the comments. I'll take a look. If you have a link online, I'd rather not throw money at these dishonest assholes, so try to find, if it's free online somewhere, like Creation.com's article was, Kent Hovind's 1991 dissertation is available on WikiLeaks as well as some other sources. This book was on its own website, I think. I don't remember the link exactly. It's been a few days. But yeah, so if you have a similar article that you'd like me to cover, write it in the comments. Now, one thing that is a little bit unclear from the previous video's topic, the first part of the book. Most of the right-hand pages have in the top right corner the name of the chapter you're currently on. The left side has the name of the book, and the right side, a lot of books do this. I happen to like when books do this. But for the previous pages, it was introduction. And we're moving here to the big picture, which in the index at the top of the book is listed before the first chapter, so it's technically still in the introduction along with all the other stuff that's listed. And it's a really oddly divided book. It's very confusing, and we'll see that when we get to the first chapter. Bear with me, you'll see soon enough. I just want to cover this, the big picture, also known as the book, with, of course, capital T, capital B, because Kent Hovind's an idiot. Weirder still, underneath that title at the top, which is not centered, which is not clearly divided, it just looks like it's another paragraph in his list of nonsense. In parenthesis is written, the short version, tell him what you're gonna tell him. I have no idea what that means. Is Kent here talking about the Bible? Tell him what you're going to tell him? Is he ordering God to tell you what he's going to tell you? Is he saying that that's what the Bible is for, to tell you what God is going to tell you? Is this a note for Kent version, telling himself to tell you what he's going to tell you? It's completely unclear what he means by this, and it's not because I've skipped a little bit. It's really just nonsensical, and he does it later too. I've had to restart this video, so I am a little bit ahead of the game on this one. But it starts out with Kent Hovind's favorite word, scoffers. Kent Hovind loves this magical word, scoffers. There are people who laugh at God, and then there are scoffers, because of course that's not what the word means, or something. For as long as religion has existed, there have been scoffers. For every scam, there are scoffers. It's how the world works. If you are suckered into a stupid bullshit thing, the people who care for you, and although I don't know many Christians, I care for them in some small fashion, enough to try to stop them from getting defrauded by assholes like Kent Hovind. People who care for you will try to prevent you from getting suckered into a scam. Religion is a scam So of course people like myself will fight to prevent people from getting scammed. The word scoffer is the ultimate defense mechanism for this, and almost every religion, every single religion that I'm aware of, but I would assume, just to be fair, I'm going to say almost every religion, I assume it's all of them. All of them have this defense mechanism. Oh, they're trying to turn you away from God. They're scoffers. They hate you for your freedom. Does it ring a bell? Saying that kind of thing puts up a wall. We're under attack. Defend yourself from the outside forces. It's a very effective system. It works so well that, of course, religion would use it. A religion that does not use this defense mechanism would instantly die. Imagine for a moment a religion that tells you, oh no, look, here's our holy book, there's a science textbook over there, go compare the two and, see for yourself. A religion that did that would cease within a week. Even Scientology tells people to stop going on the internet, don't question anything, don't talk to people who are not Scientologists, they're criminals, they want to hide their crimes or whatever. Mark Bunker has a lot of videos like that where cult members are attacking scoffers by accusing them of all sorts of things. And here you go again, scoffers who would be willingly ignorant of three things: the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment. Well, speaking as a scoffer, or as an intelligent person would say, a guy who doesn't believe in this crap, I am not willingly ignorant about creation. I've read some part of Genesis. I'm familiar with it. A little bit. The flood is a made-up bullshit story. If the world really had been covered in water for nearly a year, there would be no more plants, as well as no more animals, as well as no more people who are animals. We're a kind of animal. I know this is news to Kent. And the coming judgment. Well, Kent, again, we cannot be willingly ignorant of the coming judgment. I would like to be, as well as many atheists, I'm sure. We would all love to be willfully ignorant of the creation. Willingly ignorant, sorry, to use his word. The problem is, assholes like you keep reminding us, and you keep being wrong, but you keep reminding us of the coming judgment. It is impossible for anyone who is not deaf and blind to be willingly ignorant of the coming judgment, which is not coming because you've been wrong over 210 million times, and then some. I'm only counting Christianity. The other religions before that, that's even... I don't even want to go there. Sadly, many Christians are also ignorant of those key events in history. I would say that all of them are ignorant of key events in history. Not those ones specifically, but you contradicted yourself by calling them events in history. So, yeah. Obviously, I cannot rehash all the major events of world history in one book, although he certainly did try in his 1991 essay. History of Evolution, starting with Satan. Yeah. So I will focus on the events that will help the reader have enough background to understand the end-time events and how to prepare, because Kent Hovind in jail is now a doomsday prepper. And we thought he couldn't get any dumber. Yeah, the thing is, I'm sure that you will be trying to prepare your idiot readers for the end of the world by giving them just enough background to be misinformed. You're kind of like Fox News in that regard. You lie to people and then they're wrong about everything. Appendix 1, below is the creation event. I emphasize that last part of the sentence because it's underlined. I imagine that creation event should be what's underlined, but the underlined is not very well placed. And Appendix 1, as I said before we get back to it, Appendix 1 is, in this book, what would be known in a real book, Chapter 1. There are no chapters in this book. It's just appendices. Anyone adding up the dates given in Genesis 5:11, Acts 13 verses 20 and 21, and other verses will come to the conclusion that God created everything in heaven and earth in 6 literal 24-hour days about 6,000 years ago, or around 4000 BC. I went over this. I made a very poor showing of it, but the limiting factors of age that I mentioned in the previous half of this series, he's using the 1820 coin. If you started in the 2013 videos, Kent Hovind and his son both use a saying about a ship that sinks with coins on it, and he's trying to find the date where the ship sank, and there's an 1820 coin and there's an 1850 coin, and he asks his idiots, when did the ship sink, before or after 1850? And of course the idiots, being Kent Hovind fans, all say before 1850, which would mean that the coin magically just teleported himself into the shipwreck after the fact. Here he's doing the opposite. He's looking at the coins where the ship sank, 1820 and 1850, and he's saying, aha, the ship must have been built in 1820. Because that's his earliest date that he can go to. It could be any point before then, is the key detail. I was very unclear in the first part. I hope it's a little bit clearer now, but he's looking back 6,000 years and saying that's the beginning of the universe, when it could be any point before that, and in fact it is. That first created world was perfect, apart from the whole tree of knowledge of good and evil thing, which kind of fucked everything up, didn't it? Just saying. Or, you know, perfect except for those 2 assholes who were brainless automatons and just did whatever they were told. It would have been perfect without them, wouldn't it? I mean, perfection is something that cannot change, it cannot decay, it cannot be afflicted in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise it would not be perfect anymore. And here he is saying that the world was perfect, except there was a bunch of bad shit in it. For something to be perfect, I often say, in response to this perfection argument that creationists love to throw out, for something to be perfect, it cannot exist, because things that exist decay, and something perfect that decays is no longer perfect. So the first created world was perfect? Fine, it did not exist. That's the end of that argument. Everything was designed to live forever, but man's sin messed it all up. Where does it say in the Bible that man was destined to live forever? We know that Adam and Eve had to eat. The stuff that you eat dies. Therefore, not everything was designed to live forever, unless you're really arguing that the digestive system was just for show, and when you tore into a fruit and broke it and, you know, killed it by dragging it off the tree it was growing on, and, you know, mashing it with your teeth and then passing it through your digestive system, it came out and was just perfectly fine. Oh, you bite into an apple, you turn it into mush, and then it gets dissolved in your stomach acids and it comes out as feces? Well, it reforms into an apple and it just sticks itself back to the tree and just keeps growing. This man claims to have been a science teacher. For fuck's sake. From the creation until the flood, 1,656 years later, isn't this the asshole who said that it was impossible to pick out the exact date, time of year of creation? Oh, it wasn't on May 24th, October, whatever, something. No, it was exactly this many years, though. I could be confusing that with Mariano, the author of the atheism article, but creationists are so inconsistent with each other, and even with themselves. People lived into their 900s, so says the storybook, and you have, I think it's Babylonian myths before that, who had people who lived hundreds of years, which was just an affectation, a historical, not a historical, a mythological exaggeration to give them importance. I mean, the life expectancy of people that many years ago was maybe 25 years, 27 years, not 900. It just, whatever. Human ages recorded in Genesis 5 averaged 912. So they were created to live forever, and man's sin messed it all up, and then they lived 900 years. And fucked, and managed to successfully reproduce, even though sperm and eggs kind of stopped working really well. Women in the 40s, late 40s, maybe 50s, I'm not too up to date on that kind of stuff. And men apparently lose fertility on a steady decline from, who knows, at about 80, maybe 90, you're just completely sterile just because you're too fucking old. Yeah, they were fucking well into their 900s and having children. And you know this because, oh, a book says so, right. Presumably, animals and plants were also living much longer than they do today. Capital much, yes. Presumably. Just pulling that out of your ass, Kent. It's not written in the Bible that plants live to be 1,200 years old. It's nowhere in the Bible does it say how old plants got. You can assume it, but that makes an ass out of you. Methinks. It is a biological fact that nearly all reptiles never stop growing. Well, it's not a fact, so it cannot be a biological fact that nearly all reptiles never stop growing. During this pre-flood time, they would grow to be huge, except they wouldn't because many of them did not exist. In fact, most of them, if not all of them, did not exist. Their ancestors did, and they were not the same reptiles we have today, which do not grow to be huge, and those ancestors have entirely different conditions to deal with. Not only the conditions he's talking about pre-flood, which are, well, since the flood never happened, are not different, and wouldn't be even if this were true, but there's also the DNA to consider. This was the time of the great dinosaurs, not millions of years ago, as most kids are taught. Right. We will cover lots more in Appendix 1. Now I'm going to skip all this stuff. There's a bunch more Bible quotes. There's pictures of Muslims holding signs about how Islam will dominate the world, because of course that's scary, and Kent Hovind wants it to be Christianity that dominates the world. Then there's a picture a little bit later down of some lady sitting in the street with a completely devastated suburban area behind her with just timbers and remnants of houses. Clearly there's been some kind of a tornado that went through here. And I say tornado because it looks nothing like an earthquake and nothing like an explosion or fire. There's very little burned stuff, so I'm assuming it's a tornado. And as Kent Hovind wants you to know, tornadoes have only started happening in the late 2000s because now is the last days, not the last several million years. You know, tornadoes never happened in the past, according to Kent Hovind. Talking about Antiochus, who the fuck knows who that is, maybe you'll get into it. There's another timeline, Revelation. Finally, Appendix 1. I am, let me check, I can't see how many minutes I am into this video, probably way too long into this video. Appendix 1, creation of the world 6,000 plus or minus years ago. Telem. Again with the parenthesis with the Telem stuff. That is, why is it there? Is it a note to Kent Hovind? Did he really put notes in this for himself to tell people, or... Now there's a timeline showing all those appendices that he wants to cover in this book, and the creation one is bolded, so it's clear that that's the one he wants. Now he talks about how in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, is Genesis 1:1, and that's how the book starts. You know the book is true because it starts with the beginning. The Bible here is claiming to be telling us about the beginning. It doesn't start with some pre-existing matter or time like all other religious books. In fact, if you read Genesis, there exists two things at the beginning: God and water. In the beginning, God created the heaven. Oh, by the way, his quote here from Genesis 1:1, the heaven, no S, it's just the heaven. God created the heaven and the earth. If you keep reading, he says something about how he divides them over the face of the waters. The Bible never said he created the waters. So two things exist like all other religious books. There pre-exists God and water. Kent Hovind is a fucking moron. But we already knew that. This is it, the very beginning, starting from nothing except, of course, God and water. The first 10 words in the Bible are amazing. No, really, they're not, because those words alone are why I can declare the first sentence in the Bible to be incorrect. I don't even need to address God. I just need to use the context of the next line or two. In the beginning. It's not the beginning because God's already there. Where the fuck did God come from? Where did the water come from? Why did he feel like doing it? Kent just got done covering... no, wait. Is that a little lower down? I'm getting confused because, like I said, I read a little bit of it. Yes, it's a bit lower. The first 10 words in the Bible are completely wrong according to the rest of the Bible. And according to science, but since Kent doesn't know about any science, I'm only going to use the Bible here to say that the Bible disagrees with Kent Hovind here, and that should tell you everything you need to know. They contain a very interesting trinity of trinities that must come unto being exactly in the order stated here. Let's look at this verse carefully, because spending an entire chapter arguing about the first 10 words of a book completely invalidates the fact that the rest of the book is a mess, I guess. The tri-universe, because Kent Hovind believes in a triune God, so I guess he wants to get that triune-iverse into the book for some reason. 3 words, in the beginning. This is a reference to time. Yes, Kent. Beginning is a word that is related to the notion of time. Well done. Now go back into the corner and stare into the wall and think about what you did. Time has 3 parts, as far as we humans can understand. No, Kent. If you really want to call yourself we humans, while you're preparing yourself to define time as having 3 and only 3 parts, past, present, and future, when the reality is a little bit more complex than that, then by your definition here, everyone but you and the dumb fucks who suck your dick for a living, we would not be human. I disagree with your use of that term. Where can you go to get away from time? Well, since time is not a place, where would be irrelevant? It's a little bit wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. You probably wouldn't know about that. It's that science fiction thing that you hate because it's satanic. You know, there's scarves and everything. Scarves are from the devil, clearly. There have been scores of movies and books made about time travel, none of which Kent is capable to read without using his finger. But even these are still locked in time. Right, because... the fuck. Skipping the rest of that chapter, it's really not much better. What did God do before creation? He's talking about the time itself raises 2 interesting questions. They're not interesting. The questions are, what did God do before the beginning, and when was the beginning, as talked about here? So the first question is, what did God do before the beginning in Genesis 1:1? And here he says that question has a built-in false assumption, something Kent Hovind can recognize on sight, because that's where he gets all his ideas from. It is one of those questions like, have you stopped beating your wife yet? Yes, Kent, the 4th graders who will be reading this book will totally know what you mean when you ask them, have you stopped beating their wives yet? If you answer yes, you are admitting that you did beat your wife! Exclamation mark. Because apparently this is really fascinating to Kent Hovind. If you answer no, then you are admitting that you are still doing it. You guessed it, another exclamation mark. Kent is that much of a dick. What if you never did? Sometimes the question itself is invalid because it contains a built-in assumption. That is the second thing I can agree with him so far in this book, that sometimes the question itself can be invalid because it contains a built-in assumption. Anyone who's familiar with statistics will understand this concept very well, because there's this concept called a leading question. The thing is, this is not an interesting question to begin with, the what did God do before the beginning, and the Bible doesn't say so, so anything Kent has to say on this topic is pulled directly out of his soap hole. To ask what God did before the creation assumes that God is locked in time like we are. If God is limited by time, he is not God. Time is God. Okay, so Christians define God as being love, and now apparently time is God, so time is love. Is that what... This doesn't even make sense. If God isn't locked in time, why would it be incorrect to ask what he did before the creation? Because by saying he's time itself, then there would be no before the creation, and God happened at the same time as creation, where time is, so God is locked in time. Kent Hovind just blew his own foot off and deep-throated it. The little human brain cannot comprehend much of this truth right now, but this is not the 21st century in heaven. Correct. This isn't the 21st century in heaven, because no such place exists. The little human brain cannot comprehend much of this truth. Well, only little human brains can comprehend much of that truth, because there's no truth to it, and only an idiot would actually believe this shit. Just as a fish lives in the water and is totally immersed in it, probably, without even being aware that it is in the water, we are totally immersed in time and have been for our entire lives. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that a fish can swim up to the surface and realize that he can no longer keep swimming, and if there's any sort of cognitive capacity in fish, which we have no reason to believe, then I imagine that the fish would at least ask itself, why no can swim up anymore? Also, as for, not being aware that we're totally immersed in time, there's this thing called watches and clocks. You know these things? We have a pretty solid idea, Kent, that we're stuck in time. Kent, you fucking moron. For fuck's sake. We can't even imagine being outside of time. Correct. Hey, 2 points that I agree with in 2 pages. Kent is improving. Or whoever wrote this for him, because I don't think he was allowed a typewriter in jail. It's a part of the matrix we are in, because of course, if you're gonna steal, Matrix is a good place to go for time. I'm being serious, I'm not being facetious there. The Matrix is a great example of some things. I'm just not sure time is the right one. But sure, the analogy here to the Matrix, I'll give it to him. It's decent enough as it is. Try to explain to the fish that there's a totally new world outside of his limited world of water called air, and he will not get it. Water. Grab fish, pull fish, air. Let go of fish, fish go sploosh. This is an even simpler thing to disprove than the blindness one. You know the poem that you wrote in your doctoral dissertation? I could come up with an example on the spot for how to fix that. impossibility of understanding a concept because you're limited. Grab a fish, put it in the air, it'll quickly realize it's not in water anymore. If you try to explain there's another world outside of air called space, you will really blow his little brain. Kent Hovind, you are a fucking fish. Try to explain eternity and it will blow your brain, says Kent, whose brain is outclassed by certain lichen. The Bible doesn't tell us a lot about eternity, probably because our little minds wouldn't be able to grasp it. Or, alternately, because the people who wrote about the Bible were a bunch of fucking ignorant retards from the fucking Bronze Age who had no concept of any such thing. Just saying, you know, Magic Man versus the known reality that people in the past knew less than we do. It's really a toss-up as to which one is more likely, I guess. And of course, Bible quotes. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. So, people, the Bible doesn't tell us a lot about eternity, but it does use the word eternal in, you know, describing God as being eternal, having everlasting arms. Now unto the King, eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, for thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity. The Bible doesn't tell you a lot about eternity, except it just never shuts up about the fucking thing, apparently. Kent can't even read his own fucking... And here we have the raft floating down the Colorado River again, and the Grand Canyon. Except, at the end of this sentence, he puts parenthesis and says, sounds fun! Because Kent Hovind, apparently, is a I don't even need to say it, do I? And, of course, because his readers cannot be expected to think about anything, there's a picture of a helicopter in the book. There's a picture of a helicopter. Just a helicopter. A blank background, it's just a helicopter over a field of white. God is like that pilot, and the river is like time, blah, blah, blah. I went over this in the previous half. And of course the DVD example where you hit pause. At least he didn't go with a VCR example this time. And I hit pause just after Bill throws the Hail Mary pass, and the ball, same thing as before, because repetition, repeatedly repeats itself, whatever. I told you there was a trinity of trinities in the first 10 words of the Bible. Well, there is if you keep shoving them in there. That's the only trinity that there is there. When was the beginning? Oh, I forgot to mention, because I did in the first read I did, the video I scrapped, twice here, Kent Hovind links to his website in this book so that people can go buy his DVDs. Let me find the previous one. It's a lot higher than this one. That's my mouse making that noise. Keep going up, keep going up. Where is Dr. Dino? I know it's in here somewhere. Oh, it's in the big picture. That's even higher than I thought. Wow, bad video. I don't want to scrap this one. We will cover much more on the flood in Appendix 2, or on the award-winning Creation Seminar Series DVD number 6 from www.KentHovind's website, I'm not going to name it.com. I think I just did, but I don't care. Yes, in this book that Kent wrote, I assume to sell it, he also is advertising for his other shit. His series won awards. I like the fact that he didn't name the awards, because it's probably the Kent Hovind Award for Kent Hovind-like Kent Hovindness. When was the beginning? The second question raised earlier was, when was the beginning? The question raised earlier, when was the beginning, may take even longer to answer. Oh boy! Since everything we see in the universe is wearing out, winding down, falling apart, and burning up, following the second law of thermodynamics... No, following the laws of thermodynamics, you stupid cunt. For fuck's sake. The reason we know the universe is more than 6,000 years old is because of this fact that everything is wearing out, winding down, falling apart, or burning up. And it gives us a date a lot older. You're looking at the 1820 coin again, Kent. There must have been a beginning, just as Genesis says. Everyone, creationist and evolutionist included, there's that fucking word again, agrees that the universe had a beginning. Yes. The evolutionist, or as is commonly known in non-creationist circles, people who aren't fucking retarded, agrees the universe did have a beginning. And it did not have a magic fucking man. They differ greatly on when that was. See, here's the problem. Kent Hovind is a young Earth creationist. Here, he does not specify young or old Earth creationists. There are many creationists who agree with evolutionists on when the universe began. But of course, Kent Hovind is the only true Christian, and only by being like the sainted Kent Hovind can you hope to wind up in jail for tax evasion and be declared a martyr by your idiot followers. But the fact of there being a beginning is never in question among people with one eye and half a brain. You're thinking it too, I bet. So I won't say it. When did God create the heavens and the earth? Genesis 5:3 tells us Adam was 130 when Seth was born. Verse 6 says Seth went 105. Blah, blah, begat, begat, begat. Who the fuck cares? 1820 coin again. I just went over this, didn't I? I don't even remember anymore. Skipping that entire pile of crap, he's talking about some compromises that have been brought up to try to match reality to the Bible's fictional fairy tale story. The gap theory, silly compromise number 1. That's what it's called. The gap theory, silly compromise number 1. In 1795, a Scottish geologist named James Hutton, birth year, death year, wrote a book called Theory of the Earth, where he introduced the new idea, to the Western mind at least, that the Earth is much older than the Bible dates add up to. So we're entering here into the educational content, which is of course labeled under silly compromise. Others built on this idea until it was very popular. Good for them. In 1814, which is, oh god, I'm doing math in my head again. Let's see, 17 years after Hutton's death, Thomas Chalmers, a Scottish theologian, sought a way... Excuse me, I'm going to pull a Republican. There's water on my glasses now. That was a mistake. Wow. Sought for a way to fit great lengths of time into the Bible. Wow. He decided there must be a gap of millions of years between Genesis 1 and verse 1 and verse 2. His theory is known as the gap theory or the ruin restoration theory. Okay, and now the educational content has officially ceased. There are several variations of this theory, but the basic idea is that God made the heavens and the earth in verse 1, and then Satan fell from heaven and destroyed the perfect creation. And just like Kent Hovind, this must have been pulled directly out of someone's rectum. Skipping the day-age theory, silly compromise number 2. And I agree, this one actually is a silly compromise. A second way some people try to fit millions or billions of years into the Bible is to try to say that the days of Genesis 1 and 2 are not 24-hour days. They say the days are long ages or periods of time. The day-age theory was invented by Anglican theologian George Faber in 1820, so 6 years after the gap theory, if I remember the date right. my math isn't wrong, I think it's 1814 that I said. To support this silly theory, they always quote Psalm 90 verse 4, "For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night." And 2 Peter 3 verse 8, "One day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." These are the only 2 verses that mention this thought, compared to 0 verses to support Kent Hovind's idea earlier, and the many verses that prove him wrong. Just, this one's winning, and I think this is silly. What do you think that says about Kent's idea? Notice that each verse says 1,000, not million or billion. Right. That's why it's age, not day, 1,000 theory. It's day age. Neither of these verses are talking about the creation. Yeah, neither are you, Kent. The 6 days of creation, Genesis 1 and 2, cannot be long periods of time for obvious reasons. First, Exodus 20, verse 11 tells us plainly that God made everything in 6 days, and that was the pattern for the Sabbath. So some things can be allegorical, except when Kent Hovind disagrees with them, because Kent Hovind is here to tell God what's what. God was not telling them to work 6,000 years and then rest for 1,000 years. Credit where credit is due, and I hate giving credit to asshole creationists. That's kind of funny, I gotta admit. That made me laugh a little bit. I hit it well, but it's coming out now. That's a funny line. Secondly, even a quick look at the order of creation given in Genesis 1 will show the day-age theory to be silly. The order of creation given in Genesis 1, the day-age theory agrees with the order of creation given in Genesis 1. It just extends the duration of those days into euphemisms. They have the same order you do. If you disagree with their order, you disagree with your own order, which means you disagree with the Bible. See you in hell, go fuck yourself. On the 3rd day, God made the grass, plants, and trees. On day 4, he made the sun. If those days are millions or billions of years, the plant would all die for lack of sunlight. This coming from a guy who believes that the light in the first day was just there magically and produced by God out of nothing to, light the days after that. You believe in fucking magic, and you don't believe that there could be enough magic going around for millions or billions of years of magical sunless light? Then on days 5 and 6, he made the birds, bugs, and other animals that pollinate the plants. Right. This is the unbelievable part of the story, isn't it? For fuck's sake. Thirdly, Jesus said the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning of the creation. And that was wrong, as we've seen, because the creation starts 5 days before that. Or 5 ages before that. So Jesus was wrong, Kent Hovind is wrong, and he disagrees with a silly story that he believes verbatim. Good start. Good start, Kent. Obviously this means the first week was the first week, not eons of time, says Kent Hovind. Why? Because... was Jesus lying? Was he stupid? Yes, he actually wrote Maybe he was right. Or he wasn't, because you disagree with him. If someone wants to believe the days mentioned in Genesis 1 are the great ages of billions of years each, they are welcome to believe that, but they should not claim they believe the Bible or that they have common sense, coming from Kent Hovind, you hypocritical douchebag. He really has no leg to stand on here. The God that I worship can not only create everything perfect first try, so why did he take 6 days and then rest because he was tired? He can write a book and tell us how he did it, and he can preserve that book for all generations. Fine, then show me the original autographs of the Bible with God's signature at the bottom in the indestructible form that he created perfectly. Oh wait. The day-age theory is unscriptural, unscientific, unnecessary, silly, and a dangerous compromise of God's word, says Kent Hovind, who is guilty of at least twice as many of those things. Once people accepted the false notion that the earth was older than 6,000 years, regardless of how they justified it, that sentence has gone on long enough. I'm cutting it right there. Scientific limits on the age of the earth. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm just cutting it there. I'm not even going to address it. The hypocrisy is too much. It is pretty obvious that a simple reading of the Bible will give the reader the clear impression that God made the world in 6 literal 24-hour days about 6,000 years ago. Yes, a simple reading of the Bible will give the reader that clear impression. A more complex reading of the Bible will give the reader understanding that the Bible is full of shit. Well done, Kent. You've proven yourself a dumbass once again. Surveys show that about 60% of all Americans believe this is the way it happened. Arguments from popularity? Because, hey, 60% of all Americans can't be wrong. Oh, wait. There's a little graph on the side here from some kind of statistical study, but it's not sourced, it's not dated, or is it? There are several pictures here. Gallup poll 291, so I imagine this is February 1991. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Mobile Press has another date from 95, CBS has a date from 2004, MSNBC from 2005, and CBS News from October 2005. None of these have any sort of name to whatever statistic they were pulled from whatever report they were pulled from. A few of them have the exact day in October 23rd, 2005, March 19th, 2005, November 22nd, and the earlier ones, November 22nd, 2004, sorry, I want to be specific. There's a bunch of numbers, but, you know, he could have just made these up for all anyone cares. That anyone reading this pile of crap is just going to look at this and go, and then they're going to be really impressed because Kent Hovind says 60% of Americans believe it happened that way. That doesn't make any fucking difference. Go back 2,000 years and everyone would have agreed the earth is flat, except sailors. And, well, sailors, you know how they talk. About 30% believe God used some sort of long process to create the world. About 10% claim to be atheists. Yes. In the date that this was written, over the course of 6 years, if I remember part 1 correctly, then yeah, about 6-7 years ago, 10% would have been the right number. It's closer to 20 now, really. A lot more people are realizing that it's okay to not call yourself a Christian. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, it just means you're not an idiot. And the number is growing very, very quickly. But I'll give him 10%. Why is this relevant? Kent loves to just throw scary statistics in there, like Mariano did. The last two groups seem to feel that science has somehow proven that the Earth is billions of years old. Because it has. It's not a feeling. It's a fact. No force here, Luke. While some scientists believe the Earth is billions of years old, there are many thousands of scientists who do not. Yeah, the some scientists is like millions of them. Not an argument from popularity. It's just a fact. He's trying to diminish the scientists who believe in reality here by just calling them some and then pointing out there's thousands who are idiots. Yes, scientists does not mean geologists, does not mean astrophysicists, does not mean people with any sort of understanding of the background. You can find a mechanical engineer who thinks the Earth is 6,000 years old. He doesn't know shit about geology. He doesn't know anything about this, so what is he going to do? Study? He's done enough of that in his fucking lifetime. He's just going to believe whatever he wants, right? Because he doesn't know any better, right? What does the scientific evidence really show? Pretty much whatever you say, it doesn't show that. Kent. How old is the Earth? The return of Kent's favorite sentence in the world. In my seminar notebook, I'm surprised he doesn't have an advert to his website here to buy it. I give a simple story to help set the stage for this section and give proper perspective for discussing the age of the Earth and the various scientific ways to show it cannot be billions of years old. Let's imagine we're exploring an old gold mine and we find a Casio databank watch. It's his Casio. I recently saw on YouTube a video of Kent Hovind talking about this Casio watch with a bunch of mathematical stuff on it. And he put it in his book because, of course, who doesn't know the Casio databank watch? Half buried in the mud on the floor of the mine. Suppose also that the correct time and date are displayed on the watch and it is still running smoothly. Then imagine that I tell you the watch has been there for over 1,000 years because the coins in the sunken ship are 1820 and 1850. That means the ship was built in 1850. That's impossible, you say. That watch could not have been here for 1,000 years, and I can prove it. How can you prove it? I'm wrong, I say. Interrupting the story. Kent, to prove you wrong is one of the simplest things in the world. It's why you're in jail. Well, for one thing, this mine was dug just 150 years ago, you say. Court records show that. Okay, I admit. You're right about the thousands of years being too much, but the watch has been here for 150 years at least. No, you say. Casio didn't make the databank watch until 12 years ago. Kent, you fucking moron. We're not determining the age of the planet based on a watch dropped in a fucking hypothetical mine, you fucking retard. Skipping to evidences from space. 1. The sun is burning. Go outside on a sunny day and see for yourself, a luxury that Kent no longer has. As it burns, it loses about 5 million tons of fuel every second. So that means that it can't be millions of years old because I have no concept of how big the sun is, says Kent Hovind. I'm not even going to try to do the math, but the sun compared to the Earth is gigantic. Even if it were losing 5 million tons of fuel every second, nothing is preventing it from gaining more because space is not completely empty. And it's a really fucking huge ball of fucking gas. It has way more than 5 million tons of fuel in it, you fucking retard. For about 150 years, direct measurements of the sun's diameter have been made. These records indicate that the sun is shrinking about 5 feet every hour. I call bullshit, but, you know, if we went backward in time, adding 5 feet to the sun's diameter and 5 million tons to its mass, it wouldn't take long to create a serious problem. Changing the sun's mass. I'm thinking about doing math a little bit, so it wouldn't take long to create a serious problem. Well, I'm not going to put you through me doing the math on video, but I'd like you to do some calculations yourself, a little bit of homework, because I don't want to just subject you to watching me look up the data and do the math myself and then fail horribly because I suck at math. Take the current size of the sun as it exists right now. Take the distance, the average distance, let's say, between the Earth and the sun, and then multiply 5 feet every hour to 6,000 years and see how big the sun would be. I have the sneaking suspicion, and I haven't done the math, so this is just me guessing, but I have the sneaking suspicion that the sun would at least be engulfing Mars, or is it Mercury? Mercury is the first planet. I'm using that mnemonic. Mercury is the first planet. I bet the sun would be engulfing Mercury 6,000 years ago if it grows by 5 feet every hour for 6,000 years. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I'm just making that guess. Just saying. The distances are huge, but it's a lot of time, and the sun is already pretty big. So maybe it would be so close, Mercury would be at least, you know, a molten rock of, well, who knows? Do the math yourself. I'll be doing it after this video. I'm just thinking Kent's math here wouldn't add up even in his own system. Changing the sun's mass would upset gravity and pull Earth and all the planets in. So he's at least predicting that there's some of this, but it's Kent Hovind. I'm sure he hasn't done the math himself. If the sun were larger and heavier, the heat would be a serious problem at some point in the past. Yes, this from a guy who believes the entire planet was encompassed in a ball of ice, which then plummeted to the Earth at terminal velocity, heating up and sterilizing the entire fucking thing, while one family was sitting quietly in a wooden fucking boat. Many great books have been written on the age of the Earth issue. It's not an issue. It would be an interesting fact. It's not an issue. Saying the word issue means it's a controversy, and it's not a fucking controversy. You have the neurosurgeon, the brain surgeon, who actually knows what he's talking about when he's discussing the brain's functioning, and then you have the homeless guy who smells like piss and booze with a rusty spork telling you that he's just as good as the other guy. No, there's no issue there, you fucking moron. And of course, here's a sampling, more a reference in Seminar Part 1, and are available from Kent Hovind's website. The titles of these books, just to give you some idea of how unbiased they are. Scientific Creationism, The Collapse of Evolution, which would have nothing to do with the age of the Earth anyways, The Bible, Key to Understanding the Early Earth, A Scientific Analysis of Genes, Unlocking the Mysteries of Creation, Bone of Contention, In the Beginning. Well, that sure sounds scientific. And The Young Earth. Well, gee, I'm sold. And so's Kent. Bought and sold. While there are scores of good books on the creation/evolution subject, there are none. There are good books on the subject of evolution, there are other good books on the subject of cosmology, and the creationist books all borrow from each other and lie about science. If you just want to get two that will cover most of the issues, I would suggest The Evolution Handbook by Vance Farrell and In the Beginning by Walt Brown, which I mentioned earlier. The Evolution Handbook is nearly 1,000 pages and only $5. Dr. Brown was a physics professor at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and is now a full-time creation science speaker. I wonder why. His book is one of the best I have ever seen. Kent has seen exactly 2 books. It has technical notes for those who want to go down deep in any particular topic. Rectum spelunking for the whole family. He covers many things about the sun besides the diameter and mass problems that prove it is not billions of years old. Well, no one says the growth has to be constant. I didn't mention it earlier, but just pointing out that's another problem with this whole thing. It is shrinking, okay. Is it a constant shrink? Probably not. Would it be constant in the past? No, because when a sphere increases, those 5 feet become ever more mass. It's like not quite exponential. I don't think it would be geometric growth, but it would certainly be a lot faster than just a line getting 5 feet goes steadily. A sphere, getting bigger and bigger, more and more and more area. You know this because toilet paper rolls. You know how near the end they start going faster and faster? Well, that's the fucking point. The rate can't be steady. That's the point I was getting at with that. 2, comets are flying around the solar system. Because Kent here, I'm going to just skip this whole fucking thing. Comets cannot be more than 10,000 years old. Most astronomers agree. Okay, fine. Comets cannot be more than 10,000 years old. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is. That doesn't mean the comets started 10,000 years ago. We know that comets start in the Oort cloud. They say they are coming from the Oort cloud. No one has ever seen this Oort cloud. Oort never saw the Oort cloud. There is no sign. Look at the fucking... The Oort cloud, which is actually visible, which has been seen. You know, there's this Hubble thing that Kent Hovind hasn't heard about because he gets all his science from 1976. And even then, I would bet the Oort cloud was discovered back then, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. I'm not going to bother you by just sitting here typing it out and checking it like I did in the previous video. I would imagine that, yes, people have seen the Oort cloud. I would imagine that Oort, if he didn't see it, okay, maybe, probably predicted it and was correct. Yeah, there is scientific evidence for its existence. It's called telescopes. You know those devil tubes? There's a simpler answer, of course. The universe is not billions of years old, because, of course, the idea that chunks of ice and rock in space, which we know are there because meteorites, these chunks of rock, they can't get pulled into orbit or anything. They just sit there completely immobile, with the entire universe just sitting there. Kent Hovind doesn't even have a kindergartner's understanding of science. Evidences from Earth. 3. The Earth is spinning. We knew that! In parenthesis, with an exclamation mark, because Kent Hovind's a fucking moron. But it is slowing down a little bit every day due to tides washing up on the beaches. Prevailing wind currents and internal friction with the liquid core. Yes, the tides washing up on the beaches slows the Earth, the same way that if you're sitting on a boat and you put a sail in front of it, you can blow into the sail and the boat will move forward, because science, according to Kent Hovind, is a fucking cartoon. Yeah, the moon does create a drag that slows the Earth as well. It's a very complex thing. It's orbital mechanics. I don't even pretend to be able to understand it. And it's a lot of math, so you know I'm staying the fuck away from that. But, yeah. Kent Hovind likes to say that dinosaurs, billions of years ago, would have been mooned to death. You might remember that passage from the first half of this series. Yeah. The moon was not orbiting at sea level. It is possible that the moon impacted the Earth and then bounced off, or it's a chunk from the creation of the Earth. The formation of the Earth that broke off. I don't know much about the subject of cosmology. It's not one of the topics I paid much attention to. Just because a trend is apparent and can be misinterpreted by a creationist does not mean the trend is permanent and eternal and automatically true at all times. Same thing as the sun. The Earth has a magnetic field. That's why your compass points north. The strength of this field is getting weaker. Yes, and the strength of the magnetic field changes. It's getting weaker, it has gotten stronger, it changes, it has flipped over. We know this because magnetic residue in rocks. I don't know the correct terminology for it, but you can see the way rock is laid down. Magnetic elements are oriented a certain way at a certain... It's a complicated thing that I won't even pretend to understand like the other stuff, but I know Kent's understanding of this is, again, juvenile. There's a trend. Therefore, there has always been this trend, this Look, it's getting darker and darker. That means in the past it must have been full bright. Just yesterday. 5. The human population growth. The current population of 7 billion could easily have come from 8 people who got off Noah's Ark 4,400 years ago. If man had really been here 4 million years ago, the evolutionists teach, why isn't the Earth stacked with people halfway to the moon? Studying the erosion rates of mountains and continents, the rate of river delta formation, blah blah blah. He's not even going to give the math for his fucking bullshit. I just skipped on, and he didn't even write number 6. He moved. Scores of evidences also point to the Earth being destroyed by global flood, such as not a single fucking goddamn fucking one of fucking them. But hey, it's Kent Hovind. Many other clocks available to us today shows clearly that these processes cannot have been going on for billions of years. The sentence is correct. I stopped because I thought the grammar was wrong again, but I just skipped a part of the sentence. Why would the oldest tree on Earth be less than 4,400 years old and still growing? Because no one said the trees were created at the same time as the Earth forming, you fucking douche. The Great Coral Reef. Venomfaniacs covered all this stuff. There's a bunch of numbers that I can lie and pretend are 4,400 years old. That means flood. Look, this receipt in my jeans says the Earth was created 4,400 years ago because I bought it last Tuesday. I'm starting to get that blurry vision thing from the pain again. The evidence both from scripture and from science shows the Earth is only a few thousand years old. There's no evidence in scripture, and science disagrees with you. Fuck you, Kent. Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning. He also said Abel's death was at the foundation of the world. So Adam was the beginning, and Abel's death was also the beginning. So it's the same thing. So it's not the day-age creationism, it's the age-day creationism. All that shit happened all at the same time, and it was exactly the first day. Kent Hovind is a fucking retard. How many times, I've lost count, how many times has he contradicted himself in this fucking Appendix 1? The following Bible verses tell when the beginning, and amazingly, the beginning isn't capitalized here. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and of course the word beginning is highlighted because his idiot 4th grader adults can't fucking be expected to notice, oh, there's the word beginning there without it being bolded. Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, permitted you to put away your wives. Because, of course, when you're done with your wife, you just stick her in the shed for the next time you need a place to put your sperm that isn't the floor, because spilling your seed on the floor is an abomination unto the Lord. But from the beginning it was not so. What does that have to do with the fucking beginning of the universe? Who the fuck knows? Blah, blah, blah. Holy fuck, there's an entire page after those. And still another one on the 3rd page. Let's continue in Genesis 1:1 to see what else we can learn. Nothing. You can learn nothing else from Genesis. You can learn nothing, period, from Genesis. There are currently about 230 different versions of the Bible in the English language. I think Bible Gateway has many of those as well. I would not be surprised to learn that 230 is the number of versions on Bible Gateway, and that was the extent, the full extent, of Kent Hovind's research on this. Although he did specify the English language, but I'm assuming that's today, because if you go back in time there would be many other versions and different types of English, Old English and previous. Most are very similar in Genesis 1. For the first 6 words, in the beginning God created the On the seventh word, capital W, because it's a magic word. However, a difference shows up. Is the seventh word capital W, it's magic, very important, pay attention, you fucking dumbass creationists who paid this fucking... Is the seventh word heaven or heavens? The King James Bible has the word heaven, while just about every other version uses heavens. I'm pretty sure there would be more than just one that uses heaven, but what difference would that make, really? Oh wait, Kent is making an argument from authority by saying this one's different, so it's more truer than the other ones. Yes, more truer. I meant to say that. Not... I fuck up often, but that was intentional, I promise to you. While it may seem like a minor detail, because it is a good place to make a point, because Kent Hovind needs good places to make points, because his points are so fucking terrible otherwise. Skipping it. New Age Bible versions and In Awe of Thy Word from a place. Look What's Missing, blah, from Chick again, probably the fucking tract guy. The Answer Book. More, look at these books that prove the King James Bible is the version that is true. The Original Creation. So what was the original creation like? Why did they live to be 900 plus? The Bible gives us a great deal of information on this topic. No, it doesn't. It just says so, and that's the end of it. We tend to think that the world we see is what Adam and Eve would have seen. Not true. For the fourth time in this, I think I might have lost count, because I wasn't counting. I agree with those two words. Not true. You're right, Kent. Not true. Look at Genesis again. God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters that God never created, because they were just there at the beginning, when God created everything out of nothing, which Kent Hovind says scientists believe, and they're stupid because they believe the universe came from nothing, except... firmament here, referred to here, means expanse or stretched out place. Yes, that's what the firmament means. A crystalline dome stretched out like a beaten piece of bronze. Not helping your case here, Kent. The first firmament is where the birds fly, says Kent, because I don't think you'll find that in the Bible. The firmament is just some vague term, the heavens, the sky, it's all just one big mishmash of up there, because people of that age didn't have any sort of sophistication in their knowledge of the stuff. So, I'm skipping to page... Oh, there's a fossil flying amber on page 45, because reasons. I'm not even going to bother looking. Bones, beaver jaws... Oh, okay. Typical creationist bullshit. There's a replica of a beaver skull pictured here on a table in a museum. Now it's clearly a replica because it's bolted onto this check the clues type of informational board that, like, you'd have, you have these little tables with information on them and stuff sticking out in museums. If you've ever been to a museum, you know what I'm talking about. Now there's this gigantic replica of a skull of a beaver that says please touch. That's how you know it's a replica, because it says you can touch it. This beaver jaw indicates he was about 6 feet long, because Kent Hovind has no understanding that you can make something bigger for demonstration purposes. Next to it, by the way, there's a smaller skull that is probably the real size. But, that's expecting Kent not to be a fucking dumbass. Tens of thousands of these thermal vents have been discovered at the bottom of the ocean since 1977. I guess he's trying to say that this is where the waters of the deep came from. On the right, yes, fountains of the deep, so yay. The flood happened because thermal vents that blow out... What is that in thermal vents? Is it just sulfur? Is it water vapor because it's warmer? Is it hot air? I don't know what it is, but apparently it's water from the core of the earth, which is supposed to be molten, iron. Pre-flood animal diet. And speaking of diet, what did they have? What did they eat before the big flood came the exact number of years ago and totally rearranged everything? Because a global flood, which never happens, changed the anatomy and biology and digestive system of animals because magic. And behold, I have given you every herb, plants, bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed to you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. Before the flood, all the people and all the animals were vegetarian. Believe the idiots who wrote this book. Factually, this is not the case. Whatever, biblical diet. Notice that God had told Adam and Eve to eat the fruit, vegetables, and seeds. Blah, blah, because blah. Who wrote Genesis? I skipped just one page there, and it's not really worth going into, because the diet, anything he says, is completely irrelevant. Sure, God says you can only eat the fruit. No, he says you can eat the fruit. Not only. Another thing the Bible doesn't say is when they go to the bathroom. Does that mean the flood thing? A lot of creationists in the stripe of Kent Hovind, the yellow stripe, a lot of them believe that the first time it ever rained was during the flood, because the Bible never mentions rain before the flood. So when is the first time they went to the bathroom? Humanity as a whole. Adam and Eve never went. It's not in the Bible. Cain and Abel, they never went to the bathroom. It's not in the Bible. When exactly is the first time people go in the Bible? Apparently, according to one of the comments when I pointed this out that I saw on YouTube, someone responded, it is mentioned that at some point in time, to cover one's feet is the expression that is used to mean they went to the bathroom. When is that exactly? When is that the first time someone covers their feet? If that is what that means, I don't know. I didn't look it up. I have no reason to believe it's true, but I may as well just not believe it's false while I'm at it. If it is the first, to cover one's feet, if that does mean going to the bathroom, is that after the flood? Is that in the New Testament? I think it is. Is it? Maybe it's Old Testament. Where exactly in the Old Testament is it, if it's in the Old Testament and not the New Testament? How fucking constipated were people in the fucking Bible is the point I'm getting at here. They don't mention any of it. Going to the bathroom, what they ate, when it rained, because these are irrelevant points to a fucking story. Notice that if you read Harry Potter, his toilet thing, when he goes, how often he has to go, it's not really mentioned. There's that one time in the first book where they go into the toilet and they beat that troll, or is it an ogre? I forget. There's another few things where they go into the bathroom, but they never actually go to the bathroom. They go into the bathroom. You see what I mean? So is just Harry Potter just terminally constipated? Is that where the scar comes from? Just asking here, Kent. Let us know where in the Bible it says that they had to take a fucking dump when they ate so much fruit. Fucking idiot. How can we know to trust the creation story given in Genesis? This is the who wrote Genesis part. Apologies for that rant, but it's an important point, I think. Who wrote these words? A bunch of uneducated simpletons from the fucking Bronze Age who knew nothing about anything. Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted Kent. From various references through the Bible, it is pretty obvious that Moses wrote Exodus through Deuteronomy, but no place does the Bible say or indicate that he wrote Genesis. All show that Moses wrote Exodus. He has a bunch of quotes, and they all show that Moses wrote Exodus and Deuteronomy. I think it's Moses, though, who also writes about his death and his funeral and how people were afterwards. Pretty good author if he can write about his own death after the fact. Just Oh, I'm sorry, this is presented in Bachman vision. Right. Critics of the Bible have argued that there are 4 different authors for Genesis based on styles of writing and words used for God. For example, in Genesis 1 verses 1, 2, and 3, Genesis 1:1 and 2:3, 2 verse 3, verse divisions were inserted in the Bible in about the 1200s. So we already know that there has been stuff added to the Bible that was not in the originals. Kent is shooting himself in the foot yet again. He's running out of feet. He's only blown 2 off. How many does that mean he has left? I'm really bad at math. God damn, I really am. We see the word God used 35 times. Starting in Genesis 2 verse 4, it switches and uses the words Lord God for the rest of that chapter. There's a different Hebrew word used. Why? Is a new person writing the manuscript? Yes. But this is not ammunition for Bible scoffers. Oh, there's that word again, the scoffers. Technically, yes it is, because using a different word, using a different way of writing, if it's the same person, there's no reason to do that. If it's 2 different people who are writing in 2 different ways, then that kind of proves that it's not just one guy. Actually, the book of Genesis has 10 different authors, all of them eyewitnesses to the events they wrote about. Really? Adam and Eve were created on the 6th day, right? So who was the eyewitness on the first? Oh, wait. Kent is wrong again. Each writer signed off with the phrase, "These are the generations of." That doesn't mean anything. This only adds to the authority and veracity of the book. Oh, he didn't capitalize the book here. Kent's going to hell. More about this in Seminar Part 7. What seminar? Who the fuck knows? Critics have also... Well, okay. It doesn't add to the authority and veracity of the book because arguments from authority and people signing off doesn't mean they were right. Completely irrelevant. But, of course, since this is written for adults with the education level of a 4th grader or less, putting that in means they're going to be terribly impressed. Critics have also argued that there are 2 conflicting creation accounts. That's because there are, in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Chapter 2, says here Kent, to try to convince us that it's not a mistake, is simply expanding on the events of day 6 in the garden. Chapter 2, verse, I think it's 3 or 4, the first few verses are, of chapter 2 say, chapter 1 is how it happened, and then the verse after that paragraph break starts up, this is the story of how it happened, before there were any plants. God made man. So there's 2 conflicting accounts, but it expands on the 6th day. That's the difference. Because God first creates the heavens and the earth, and he creates light, then he creates the stars, and he creates plants, and he creates animals, and whatever the order is. I probably got the order wrong. I don't really care about it. Who fucking would? I mean, it's a fucking bullshit story anyways. But, all those things, and then after plants, after animals, after the waters, and the heavens and the earth, and all that stuff, God finally creates people on day 6. Plants, animals, all that stuff is over here, day 6. And now day 6, we expand it, and we have people, the creation of the first plants who did not exist until then, and then everything else. Which I'm going to just gloss over, because the plants were already created. It's not a fucking expansion, it's a fucking rewrite. But, And it's not a rehash of the 6 days of creation, correct. It's not a rehash, it's a fucking rewrite, from start to finish. The animals made after man in day 6 are only the ones made in the garden so Adam could name them. So there were animals created before Adam, and Adam didn't name those. Adam was created, and then plants were created for the first time, for the second time. And then God created a bunch of other animals, the previous ones going unnamed, so that Adam can name those. Kent Hovind here has taken a serious problem for his scripture and his theology and made it twice as bad. I love it when creationists do that. I really do. It makes my job so much easier. Select a wife and actually see God make things. So here Kent Hovind is claiming that Adam saw God create everything on day one from the Garden of Eden, which was not created then. And neither was he. Right. Satan shows Eve to come to and make her doubt. More M's in his this time. I cover many supposed contradictions in the Bible in Seminar 7. Where the fuck is Seminar 7? Who the fuck knows? God himself must have either written or dictated to Adam the events of chapter 1. So here we have Kent Hovind contradicting himself again, because if Adam wrote the events of chapter 1, he was not an eyewitness. And God himself would not have written it, because nowhere does it say God ever wrote anything. And as we know from Kent Hovind and his "it never rained before the flood and people didn't poop" arguments, if God is not said to do something in the Bible explicitly, he did not do those things. Adam then added chapters 2 to 4 to the record and passed it on to one of his descendants, presumably on clay tablets baked or dried into pottery, because of course the advent of pottery was a day after the beginning of the universe. Noah would have carried the sacred records on the ark. Right. Where's that said in the Bible again? Oh wait, it's not, because we know that this was written a lot after the alleged events ever took place. Then there's Shem, and then there's Curly, and then there's Joe and Mo, and eventually Moses, being raised in Egypt to be a pharaoh and having access to the best libraries and records, came into possession of the records or a copy of them. Blah, blah, blah. Key characters. I believe God created the world just as he said he did in Genesis, and he preserved the record of how he did it without error for us today, except we know that this is false. Many Bibles, including, I would imagine, the King James Version, will explicitly list errors or additions, known errors or additions, at the bottom of the pages of the Bibles that the creationists who will read this will never have seen because they don't read their fucking Bible. Actually, that reminds me, complete side note, I was looking for it in my previous video. I found my Bible. Whoop, there it is. I found my Bible. And, you know, I totally get Christianity now. Listen to this. That is a satisfying noise. That is an awesome noise. You really just listen to that. Bible thumping. I get it now. It is satisfying. It hurts a little bit if you do it too much, but goddamn, listen to that noise. Oh yeah. And before you ask, I have not read it. It's in Japanese. That's a bit of a funny story. My dad knows how much I laugh at religion, and he volunteers at a soup kitchen, and they were selling that Korean Bible for like 10 cents. He called me to see if I wanted it, and I thought, why the fuck not? Turns out it's Japanese. Where was I? Right. Preserve the record. Probably mistakes at the bottom of the pages of that Bible, but I wouldn't know because I can't read Japanese. But it's a perfect Bible for every Christian because they don't read it anyways. Sometime after the creation, maybe even 100 years after. Why? Because Kent Hovind just pulled it out of his ass. Satan fell from heaven and Adam and Eve sinned. I say 100 years because the only clues we have are: 1. Everything was perfect at the end of day 6. Satan had not fallen. 2. Adam was 130 years old when Seth was born. 3. Cain and Abel were born before that, but no dates are given. So he knows this how? 4. For Adam had sinned and been kicked out of the garden before he and Eve had any children, so 100 years of paradise in the garden before they sinned seems about right to me. And with that kind of rigorous mathematical analysis, who could fucking argue? One problem. What day was it in the garden when Satan tempted Eve? You know, Satan, who would have already decided to fight back against God by telling the truth to Eve to prove that God was a liar and try to exalt himself. Oh, right. Forget a little bit of your theology there, Kent. It appears from the description of Satan's fall in Ezekiel and Isaiah that Satan was overcome with pride in his power, riches, beauty, and wisdom. Why would an angel have riches? The same exalt stuff, who cares? The wages of sin is death. Kent just throws that in there. Once Adam and Eve sinned, the sin had to be paid for with death. Why? Because God decided it that way. Why? Who the fuck knows? Why did they sin in the first place? Because God set them up for failure, because he wanted to punish them, and he would know, of course, in advance that this was all going to happen and that he would have to kill people a whole bunch of times. They tried to make an apron of fig leaves, but God rejected their works. Here's the worst thing. They didn't make an apron of fig leaves to apologize to God. They, in the story of Genesis, make an apron of fig leaves. I don't think it's mentioned that it's an apron. They just cover themselves with fig leaves. They cover themselves because now that they know the difference between good and evil, for some reason they understand that being naked is evil. Which raises the question, as I have done in the past, why did God let Adam and Eve walk around naked if, after eating the magical fruit of objective knowledge of objective good and objective evil, which it must have been, because how the fuck else would it work, they eat this fruit of knowledge of what is good and what is evil just absolutely, and they figure, we're naked, that's bad. Why would God let evildoers walk around naked? I think God was enjoying a little bit of the, you know. But God rejected their works, and here we have the works thing. You have to have faith. It's not just works alone that leads to salvation. You have to have works, but it's not works. It's all faith, except it's not all faith because it's works too. And killed an animal, probably a lamb, and made coats, not shorts, aprons, or bikinis, for each of them. God understood the importance of modesty, which is why he let people run around naked. It is logical to assume that God explained why he had to kill a lamb and instructed them on bringing a suitable sacrifice to God for future sins. Oh boy. Still in Appendix 1, moving to a new segment, the beginning of the only two religions in the world. Because all those other religions, they don't actually exist, even though they do exist, and we have, you know, statues, scriptures, temples, ruins from ancient civilizations that followed different religions. No, those never existed, according to Kent Hovind, world historian. We read the story of the first two boys born into this first family, Cain and Abel, because Cain and Abel are the two religions of the world. I covered Cain and Abel, I think, in the previous series. Even I borrowed heavily from Logic and his Hello, I'm a Scientist series, where Cain brings vegetables to God and Abel brings a lamb to God, and God is super stoked about the animals and he hates the vegetables because, you know, I give you the care of the vegetables, Cain, and you, Abel, you can take care of the animals. Give me offerings. Cain, you only brought me vegetables? Die, motherfucker! In spite of God's prohibitions, something, many countries and cultures continue to practice close marriages, and many still do today. Says the fucking guy who believes that Adam and Eve were made from the same fucking DNA, you know, that rib thing, just saying, and had many children and had incestuous relations for ever. But the gene code was pure in Cain's time. There would be no defects in children. They were still incestuous fucks, but it was okay, because Kent Hovind says so. Otherwise, it makes him look kind of silly, and Kent Hovind cannot abide looking silly. Skipping... More stupid bullshit. Talking about Enoch, longevity chart, Adam to Joseph. This is actually really great. On page, what page is this? 55 of this book, if you find it yourself. Noah is listed here, and the flood is marked as being 1,656 years before the birth of Jesus or whatever. Methuselah would have been alive at the time of Noah. I think this is also present in the movie Noah, and it's played by Anthony Hopkins, I believe is the name of that actor. So Methuselah, who had direct knowledge of God, because he was only, according to this chart here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations after Adam. He would have had, if not direct knowledge, certainly knowledge directly from Adam, who was still alive at the time of his birth. Noah was only born a few centuries, a few decades after the death of Adam, according to this chart. It's beautiful fiction. But Methuselah, who would have spoken to Adam personally, who would have been alive at the same time, lives up until the flood, and this man who knew God and knew God's first creation would not have listened to Noah when Noah said, "Get on the fucking boat, there's water coming." Yeah. Completely inconsistent. Just so fucking stupid. Here he's mentioning Methuselah, probably saying how Methuselah knew about it and just died in the flood anyways. Roman structures at the pre-Roman site of Baalbek, who cares? Machu Picchu, who fucking cares? See the book The Secrets of the Inca Stones, not Ica stones, Inca stones, available on Kent Hovind's website for more blah blah blah. Fucking buried alive, Neanderthal man, Jack Quozo, a picture of another book that he's probably selling on his fucking website. On the lighter side, please let me end here. No, god damn it. On the lighter side, someone sent me a cute anecdote about lessons learned from Noah's Ark. All I need to know I learned from Noah's Ark. A. Don't miss the boat, or else you'll die in a horrible, horrible way by drowning, while a wall of water destroys everything you hold dear. Even if you're on the boat, that's going to happen. B. Remember, we are all in the same boat. C. Plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Right, because of course it didn't rain until the flood, even though the construction of the ark, according to the story, takes something like 120 years. Plants just didn't get thirsty, I guess, because they were perfect, and then God destroyed them, because reasons. D. Stay fit. Rule number 1, cardio. When you are 600, God may ask you to do something really big. My head hurts. Yeah, go ahead and live to the age of 600. Just go ahead. Do it. Once you accomplish that, then come and see me. And then we'll talk. You stupid motherfuckers. E. Don't listen to critics. Get the job done. You might be just digging a hole over and over again, but don't let the critics tell you that's stupid. Just keep digging that hole for reasons. Don't have good reasons. Just have reasons and follow them. F. Build your future on high ground. G. For safety's sake, travel in pairs. H. Speed isn't always an advantage. The snails were on board with the cheetahs. This next one doesn't even make sense. I. When you are stressed, float a while. How? On a gigantic, impossible wooden boat built without iron nails or structural support beams for over a period of 8 months or so, with no fucking food and animal excrement piling to the fucking ceiling of your imaginary fucking boat? Float on that when you're stressed? Yeah, this is gonna get people fucking killed. Oh, you're stressed? Just get on a fucking boat. A magic one. That'll solve all your problems. J. Remember the Ark was built by amateurs, the Titanic by professionals. Right. Right. They are building an Ark. Amateurs are building an Ark at the Creation Museum. I look forward to seeing that fucking shit collapse and kill people. I don't want people to die, but it will be satisfying to know that creationists who went and gave money to the charlatans who operate that thing paid for it with their lives. Harsh? Yes. No matter the storm, this is K, the last one, when you are with God, there's always a rainbow waiting. Lots of wisdom in that. Where? Because I didn't fucking see any. Another lesson from Noah's life, sorry, that's steam beeping, is that we need to listen carefully for the voice of God. Could you hear God if He did speak to you, or is there too much other noise around you? So don't listen to music, and if people are talking to you, tell them to shut the fuck up, because God is going to interrupt at any minute now. Maybe in the next 5 minutes. So just keep listening. Many other Bible characters have had to get away from the noise of life to be able to hear God's voice. And others wrestled with the fucking asshole. So what the fuck is your point? Oh, right. Eschew the material possessions and give all your money to the church because God needs cash and wants to talk to you any minute now. He'll call collect. Some people wonder why God never speaks to them or doesn't prevent them from making dumb mistakes. You mean like not wearing a fucking condom when your name is Kent Hovind's mom? And her name must be Mom, because I remind you, in the 1991 dissertation, he thanks his mom and dad, capital M, which, according to the grammar that I looked up, would only be acceptable capitalized if you referred to someone's name previously in the document. And Kent didn't, so his mom must be called Mom Hovind, by marriage, of course, and his dad must be Dad Hovind, by birth. Odd name for a child. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, here we have, I think, the beginning of the Doomsday prepper stuff. A pile of pictures of canned foods, you know, because you need to start stocking up on reserves. I'm not even reading it. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Whatever. You know, just get your canned foods ready, build your bunker above ground if possible, because that flood's coming. Oh wait, God said He wouldn't flood the world again, so build a fireproof shelter or something. Who the fuck knows? A little bit later we have Kent Hovind's brilliant dash letter way of extending a word. A ahead for eternity. Keep in mind you will be dead for a long time. Later on, there's another picture, because Kent knows his audience. A newspaper with the word critics in the top right corner. And it says something about someone returning campaign contributions. The other stuff isn't written. Returns is really blurred, but apparently it's just a newspaper that I bet Kent Hovind didn't get the rights of to print that picture, but there's no mention of what newspaper it is, so you can only guess by the news vertical line A3. What newspaper does that in that style exactly? Well, I don't know. Oh, thank for fuck's sake. I can finally stop skipping pages. We are at Appendix 2. So I'm just doing this to this Chapter 1 called Appendix 1. And I will see you in the next one after I recover emotionally from this fucking torture. Remember, kids, stay safe.